The hands-off protests that swept across the United States on April 5, 2025, represent more than just a weekend of political expression. They are a searing alarm bell, a warning siren echoing from coast to coast about a nation teetering dangerously on the edge of institutional breakdown. Tens of thousands of Americans braved poor weather and deep uncertainty to make their voices heard in over 1,200 rallies nationwide, unified not just in protest against a single policy, but against an administration they see as systematically dismantling democratic norms, economic security, and civil stability. What's unfolding is not simply a shift in government. It is a transformation of governance, one that many fear may be irreversible. From Washington, D.C. to small towns in the Midwest, protesters carried homemade signs, chanted hands off, and warned that the very fabric of the republic is under attack. Lawmakers joined them, but the urgency on display came not just from politicians. It came from parents, retirees, federal workers, students, and professionals who feel their future is being stolen from beneath their feet. The scope of the anger is not localized or partisan. It is deeply personal, existential, and rooted in lived fear. These rallies are not just about tariffs, though Trump's unprecedented and sweeping trade levies have caused immediate economic pain. They are not just about federal cuts, though the mass layoffs and buyout offers from agencies like the Department of Housing and Urban Development are gutting services that millions rely on. They are not just about political style, though the constant flouting of constitutional norms has thrown the basic balance of powers into chaos. They are about a system being actively re-engineered to serve a narrow few at the expense of the many, with devastating consequences already materializing and more looming just ahead. Families like Stan and Cindy Prusick exemplify the anxiety rippling across the country. Lifelong savers who did everything right, they now fear their retirement may vanish in a market battered by economic isolationism and capricious trade policy. Their unease is shared by millions. Americans watching the stock market's wild fluctuations, the erosion of diplomatic alliances, and the creeping sense that the safeguards meant to protect their rights and livelihoods are being stripped away, one executive action at a time. The inclusion of tech billionaire Elon Musk as an advisor, and the subsequent rebranding of key government offices under the so-called Department of Government Efficiency has only intensified fears of a corporate oligarchy displacing the public sector. When union stewards like Paul Osadebe stand before crowds warning that federal employees are being pushed out en masse and that those in charge don't value communities, lives, or democracy itself, it's not exaggeration, it's experience. These buyouts and restructurings are happening now, not as a future threat, but as a present crisis. The government, once a buffer against inequality, is being reshaped into an engine of exclusion and privatization. The effects are cascading quickly and aggressively. Federal education services are being shuttered or absorbed into private programs, sparking mass student protests. Healthcare coverage under federal programs is being quietly curtailed, especially in underserved and rural communities. Data protections are being rolled back. Environmental safeguards have been eliminated almost entirely. And all of this is happening under a narrative of efficiency and patriotism that barely disguises the raw consolidation of power and wealth. This is not just a backlash to unpopular policy. It is resistance to the degradation of the social contract. Protesters rightly warn that the administration's policies are not only hurting individual Americans, they're threatening the foundational systems that hold up the entire country. As Representative Jamie Raskin pointed out, the U.S. Constitution was not written for dictators. And yet, the accumulation of unchecked executive power under Trump's second term, coupled with his increasingly autocratic behavior and the erosion of judicial independence, is pushing the country into a dangerous gray zone where legality, accountability, and democracy are all under siege. Representative Maxwell Frost's warning that it will get worse is not hyperbole. It is a forecast grounded in current momentum. The administration has already normalized mass regulatory rollbacks, corporate entrenchment in public institutions, and the defunding of opposition-held districts. What follows this path is clear in the history of other nations: the silencing of dissent, the erosion of voting rights, and eventually, the loss of meaningful democracy altogether. Organizers in Boston were blunt in describing the threat. According to them, The administration now believes the country belongs to them. They're not just seizing policy control, they're redefining who has rights, who gets protection, and who counts. What makes this moment especially perilous is that it is happening without the sound of tanks in the streets or shuttered media outlets. It's happening incrementally, bureaucratically, and under the guise of reform. And that's exactly why it's so dangerous. The protests may have been peaceful, and thankfully there were no reports of mass arrests or violence, but their message is anything but calm. This is a desperate cry for attention to a collapsing center. A declaration that we are watching the slow-motion unraveling of an accountable government and the rise of something much colder, much more volatile, and much less free. The White House's silence in response speaks volumes. These protests may not be enough to change course on their own. But if they are ignored, if this energy fades into another news cycle, we may soon find that there is nothing left to protest for.